checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I want the money, the power, respect, and I heard you know so-and-so, you not a threat, cause I really know so-and-so, they like my family, so they go pretend that they cool till they bust at your motherfucking chest. I'm getting gutter, my flow been like butter, my check in the bank, they see the number. All of my haters feel one of two ways, really upset or they show some respect. I can't even think about it, I've been up, so read about it, no beat around it, straight to it, no ring around it. You coming for me, we'll see about it, we'll never see it when I get my feet up. 100 meters where I run the fee up, and go for ching and I'm on a pia. I had to re-up on a reel, so you stay the feeder, and put it back into the bit, cause I don't really need it. I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I had to put all their egos in check. You're not entitled to anything else. I get 10 years of this under my belt. Your art isn't art, they don't feel it, and nobody hears it. Initiative stay on the shelf. Your ego done got in the way. It gotta die today. It gotta go. You should be happy I lighten the load. The weight of your arrogance, heavy as stone. I make an appearance, they already know. That chip on your shoulder gon' crumble and fold. Yeah, it's not a secret that you have been fearing the shit that I'm on. So you back to the brag and the boast. But I'm in a class of my own. I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check.
Woo! Welcome back to Drone Brews. It is another beautiful Wednesday night here in Tampa, Florida. I almost didn't think that this show tonight would actually happen because we had some crazy thunderstorms that took out the power here in the studio, and just a little bit before the show was ready to go live, I got a notification that the alarm system was back and that power was restored and internet was back to where it should be. So actually just wrapping up editing some photos for a client, and I'm going to export these, and we are just going to jump right into tonight's live stream, which I'm pretty excited to talk about. Man, we have a lot to break down. It's been a hot minute since I had a chance to talk to all of you. Export these files. They are going, and let's go ahead and first off, let's greet the chat here, because like I said, it's been a hot while. So let's start from the very top. We got Chris Wedgeworth, Eric Casso, Drone Shots in the house. We've got Big Water UAV. Good to see you. Windwalker Drones. Let's see, Axis Imagery. We got W Drones. East Coast Thrills. Soups. No longer Soups FPV. It's just Soups. We got Bare Necessities Aerial Photos LLC. Good to see you. Lon's here. Got Brad Berry. Dover Drone Photography. Paul Slothberg's in the house. Rudolph Wise is here. Make sure you are uploading your photos. Rudolph, please, for the love of God, upload your photos so we can make the deadlines tomorrow. We got Silas, 107 Drones, Papa Tree, Turning Stone, George Kelly, and likely many, many more. There are 68 of you here in the chat watching live. Tonight, we're talking about sort of the future of DJI here in the United States, because, man, it's been a rough few months for DJI, facing an all-out ban, which seems to be in limbo right now. Seems to be, I say seemingly, but we know that that's not very well the case. The fact is that it goes back and forth between Senate and House when it comes to the ruling on things. So right now we are in the stage where right now everything is sitting back in the House's hands, and it's going to go back to Senate very soon. But lawmakers are pushing and prodding, poking and prodding, and a recent development actually has now included Anzu Robotics along with Cogito, which Cogito is the makers of the Specta drone and all the Specta variants of the drones. And I'll read to you here something that Elise Stefanik tweeted out. I think it was today she tweeted it out. But I thought it was pretty interesting nonetheless. So let me actually go to the message here. I actually screenshot it because she's such a dumbass. Chinese military company DJI Global. Notice Chinese military company. That's how she addresses them. knows that my legislation, the Countering CCP Drones Act, will be signed into law as part of this year's National Defense Bill, resulting in new models of DJI drones being banned from America. Okay, so let's take that for what it is. So she acknowledges the fact that existing, so that is, there's something to be okay with, I guess. Existing models of DJI drones, and this also doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to try to break this down. Will be signed into law as a part of this year's National Defense Bill, resulting in new models. So that means anything that hasn't been released by DJI yet from being banned from America. So what you're saying is new models that aren't here right now are more dangerous to our national security than the existing drones that are currently here and have been here for well over 10 years. So new shit that hasn't hit the States is more dangerous than what's already here. Let me keep reading because it gets better. She just digs herself deeper into her idiotic hole. DJI is trying to evade this law. It's not a law yet. It's not a law. It's not a law because it hasn't been signed. It hasn't been received yet, Elise. A law is something that is signed off by the President of the United States. Hasn't been done yet. It's not a law. It's not a law. There's nothing that they're not doing anything wrong yet. So we're breaking this down, but I'm helping you. I'm helping you figure this out as we go. DJI is trying to evade this law by white labeling their technology, but they will not get away with it. Good for you. Nothing gets past you. It's past time for the U.S. to stop allowing communist China's unfair trade practices to undermine U.S. economic prosperity and national security. We must ban DJI and start building our domestic drone manufacturing. I don't think I'm good enough at reading this. I'll be right back.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Elise. Thank you. I'll take it from here. Let me try to break down what Elise is trying to say. Basically, what she's trying to say is that the U.S. market had an opportunity in Skydio, but Skydio just couldn't quite come together. Now, I've had several meetings with Adam Bry about his Skydio drones and flying over water and being able to do half as good as what our Chinese counterparts have tried to do. But, unfortunately, they're just not good enough. And the only way to beat the Chinese drones is to all out ban them. And what I've done is I've hired Elise to build an army of people that just don't like communist China. And basically what we're going to do, we're going to beat the drones by banning the drones. We're not going to build better drones. We're going to build mediocre drones. We're going to basically build like the Ford of drones. It's going to be like the Pinto of drones. Not better, not worse, just okay. So hopefully that clarifies everything for you.
A simple email would have did just fine. You didn't have to come all the way here from Mar-a-Lago. I appreciate that, though. So basically, that's the bottom line, is that it says it all here in this tweet. They are fucking straight up lobbying to ban a competing drone. If their existing product is safe, why wouldn't a future product be safe? Don't toss us a bone. Don't toss us a half-ass bone and lie to the American people. Just call it for what it is. You're being lobbied. Nobody in the drone industry thought that Anzu was a self-proclaimed, original drone. Everybody in the drone industry knew exactly what Anzu was. Anzu wasn't designed to circumvent your legislation that you proposed. Anzu was brought in to circumvent local and state government agencies that were banning drones in place of inferior products, not from a national level. That was an afterthought. Anzu was in place well before anything that Elise Stefanik was even proposing. That is the hilarious thing. But this is because politicians, they will lie straight to your face every given chance that they have. And it's all about who's going to tell you the better bullshit. That is really what it's all about at the end of the day. Who will spoon feed you the better bullshit? And I know she probably thought to herself, hey, I'm going to be on this ticket. I got to propose things that are appealing to my party's, alignment and ideas. Well, that just doesn't work. That just doesn't fly. So the reality is, until that's signed into law, we still are going to be able to use the existing drones, and DJI is still going to keep bringing new products in here. So I know, like, the security analysts, they were probably doing a victory lap. Like, we told you Anzu was DJI. We told you. Get a fucking life. Nobody knew. Nobody thought that it wasn't DJI. We knew. Like, that's like saying, wow, I'm driving this Infinity. It's definitely not Nissan, but everywhere on the engine and marked everywhere else is marked fucking Nissan. Come on, we know. We're not stupid. It's a circumvention of a problem that was created by politicians that are out of touch, that don't have any common sense. But at some point, you have to tell the American people exactly why something is dangerous or shouldn't be used for them, because otherwise they're going to start fighting back, especially when it has to do with people's livelihoods. People will fight back each and every time. And that's exactly what's happening. First responders are telling people to fuck off, like Skydio. They're not going about that. Why? Because the drones aren't capable of doing what they needed to do. I'd love to see what their Ascend 2024 brings, because it's going to bring more of the 3D printed bullshit drones that they already have, garbage that doesn't work, to the table. Because that's the best they can do. And they've had 6 years to try to compete with what China was doing. They couldn't do it. So if they haven't been able to do it before, they're not going to be able to do it now. And how come they haven't been able to do it? They'll blame it because, it was unfair because of pricing. Well, that's a problem that was created by our own damn country, right? So why wasn't that problem rectified 3-4 years ago? If costs were too high for manufacturing, or you felt that you didn't have the technology to compete, something should have been said 3 or 4 years ago. Not now. Not now. It's just hysterical. Let them have their victory lap for the moment. Let them have their victory lap for the moment, because that moment is fleeting. You think this is over? You think it's over? It's not over. It's only just starting. And just remember, there are people with more money, more influence than you, and they will always win against the little fucking nerds. Kevin. Mr. Finkelstein likes to dox people. We'll see what happens this time, because now we're playing. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole again, because it's not going to end very well for that party, because now it takes the legal spout. This time I just go to legal route with him. Not to mention that 3DR and GoPro were having their drones built in China. Yeah, they're all manufactured in China. They're all manufactured in China. Everything, but that's okay. We can't pick and choose when we want to be okay. We can't pick and choose when we are going to be okay with things that are manufactured in China. That is just not, we can't be that ridiculous and two-faced. We can't pick and choose. Manufacture in China has been a thing for many, many years because of the cost that they were willing to achieve to bring the product price down. Because Americans are so fixated on the cost of things that to manufacture something here in the States was going to cost, essentially 20% more than what it would cost, and sometimes 50% more than what it would cost to do it overseas. But we can't be two-faced about this. We can't complain about the problem that we created. We were looking for solutions to manufacture things cheaper. And when drones were being developed for consumers, really not too many American companies showed interest. You had 3DR at the time. Parrot was creating drones, albeit they were a French company. But there really wasn't very many options in the American space. I could think of maybe one or two. They didn't gain enough backing. Their product wasn't good enough. They were forgotten. That is evolution of a product. That happens when something isn't good enough. And look where we are today. People are crying that the American drones weren't given a chance. They never had a chance because they never had a product that was ready to go, and they just didn't give a shit. You can't start the race 30 cars back and expect to win. That doesn't work. And you can't do that by cheating. You can't win. And this is unfortunate though, because this is the Republican Party, I hate to say it, is the one that are so anti-China. Instead of figuring out a solution to mitigate this problem between the two countries, they can't. And instead, it's like this silent warfare, I don't even know what they really even call it. It's a commerce, what would you even call it? An e-commerce warfare, essentially, where we're hitting, countries with tariffs. They're hitting us with tariffs. They're charging us fees. I mean, it's a back and forth battle. No one's going to win this the way it's going. Nobody's going to win this. It's not going to end well for any parties involved, companies wide as well. I mean, and obviously greed has a lot to do with it. The companies here in the States that have pushed their manufacturing overseas did it because of margins, the bottom line. That's the reason why they did it. They didn't do it because they thought, oh, this would be a much more efficient manner to have products built overseas. No, they did it for margin. Why do you think Apple builds in Foxconn? Well, they do that for margins, right? It's cheaper to produce millions of products, millions of phones overseas than it is to do it here. And again, it's that almighty bottom dollar. And it's not even that Apple's products are so much more affordable than anybody else's, because it's actually the polar opposite for what you're actually getting. But this trickle-down approach, this effect that, we have to ban Chinese drones, so much is built in China, so much technology. And if you're going to start with drones, then you might as well start with devices such as 3D printers that are connected to networks. If you're so concerned about safety, spying, or, network eavesdropping, then you may want to look at Bamboo or other companies that are connecting via Wi-Fi to send files or communicate directly over. I mean, you might as well look at that as well. I mean, why just stop with drones at that point? It doesn't make sense. And it also doesn't make sense that you'll be okay with the fact that existing products are here. That's okay. Like the whole Anzu thing, I saw these tweets a while back ago. I saw them breaking down, decompiling the code. And I mean, it was right there. Like, it was right there. Even right down to the application. It was basically like DJI handed Aloft the SDK and said, here you go. It's pre-made. All you have to do is recompile it and strip out our backend, but here you go. It's like giving somebody a ready-made meal, like a preheated meal, and all you had to do is put it in the oven and just set it to bake. That's it. That's literally what they gave them. We knew that. I don't think that anybody was shocked by any of that. Like, it wasn't fooling anybody in the industry. We knew that, but it was an open opportunity. Not only was it an opportunity, but it was a solution to a problem for local governments. Local governments, it was a solution for it. But again, reiterating, it's not breaking a law because that law does not exist concurrently. That law does not exist right now. So it's not breaking a law. It just sucks to see this because there's a lot of people that I know in the industry that do this type of work every day. And granted, like, listen, they're not saying that they're going to ban the existing products, which that is something. But at the same token, that ramp that they were trying to give us, that off ramp from DJI, is only a good solution if we have solutions to fall back on, right? We don't have anything to fall back on. You can't fall back on Skydio because Skydio is made it very clear they are an enterprise solution. So the consumer, the photographer, the videographer that's out there that makes a living doing, I would say, more of a niche level of work that is not accommodated by Skydio has really little to no options to flock to. I don't expect a videographer or photographer doing residential photography, and I am speaking to myself, real estate photographers alike, to set up a $10,000 Sony AirPeak with a $4,000 camera with, a pretty heavy payload. That doesn't make sense for them to do that. That doesn't make sense for them to do that. Nor is it very safe in the same perspective. But again, not telling the American people as to why it's not, what is the deemed threat. It doesn't make sense. And again, I know people are like, well, you wouldn't understand. You're not decompiling the code. You're not seeing the back end. Okay, totally get that. But why would it make, and again, this is me playing devil's advocate here. I'm asking the question, then why is it okay to operate the existing aircrafts that already have had studies done on them to operate in the national airspace, but you're not going to allow new products in, but you're going to be okay with existing products? Or what is your plan to eventually ground those aircrafts, or can you not? I mean, I'm just asking logical questions because if you want to try to provide logical facts, quote unquote, give us answers as to the why. I mean, at the very least, we paid for these products, we're operating them. You have the right to ask these questions. I think gone are the days that you can sit there and just the government says no, it's no. You don't deserve a response. You don't deserve a clarification. And to that, I say, we did the same thing when all the conspiracy theorists said that Facebook was suppressing right-wing media and they were suppressing these things. See, it works both ways, right? People were making these claims. And then just recently, the Zuckerberg himself comes out and actually admits to suppressing key information and to manipulating the things that people were reading and seeing in social media. And this happens all over the place. It happens on YouTube. It used to happen on Twitter, doesn't anymore, but it's happening in so many different areas that we interface with daily where they manipulate what you are seeing. The perception that you read is manipulated. Isn't that something? Isn't that something that you can literally manipulate people to believe whatever it is you want with just an algorithm? And that's exactly what's happening. So that's why I don't trust the government at this point, and I want to know an answer. I spent money on these products. It's part of my business, and I'm asking for an answer. Sans humanitarian, whatever, there's always going to be something that somebody doesn't agree with, but give me a definitive, straight up answer. Because this has gone on now for almost a year now, really hot and heavy. So at this point, I think we deserve somewhat of a response, right? We deserve a response from somebody. But you can't just make it okay to say you can operate old, you can't operate new. Doesn't make any freaking sense to me, in my honest opinion. And again, I'm not a security analyst. I'm not a security researcher, but even those guys have to understand like what a civilian that is doing a job with this equipment is going through. Just like if they did not have the right equipment to be able to break down these types of drones or these types of technologies, they wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like if you said, well, you can't use this type of computer to do this type of work. And if they needed that to be able to do the job they do, they would feel the same way. So we're asking the same questions that they should ask if they were told no to a certain whatever. So I only feel it's fair. Only feel it's fair. Oh, let me get caught up here in the chat. And that's the problem, Randy, is that officials that are not at a ground level are trying to run the country and what the country does. We've seen it in Florida, and that lasted for a little while, right? It lasted for a little while. Law enforcement essentially kicked back, and they said, no, we're still going to operate the aircrafts that we had already purchased, i.e. DJI and Autel, and really nothing's changed. Some of those agencies jumped on board with the whole Skydio bandwagon and I think the Cirrus program from FLIR, but for the most part, a lot of these sheriffs were probably sitting there scratching their heads and crunching numbers like, how do I fit these programs into our budgets? Our budgets are small, maybe $60,000, $70,000 a year for a drone program, which I know it sounds like a lot of money, but then when you look at Skydio that is charging a subscription-based service and you have, let's say, 4 or 5 deputies that are responsible for operating an aircraft, that really chews up an entire budget when those aircrafts are meant to be operated over a reoccurring license. It's just not possible. And it costs the taxpayers and the local taxpayers like myself and others a tremendous amount of money, which is insane. Unnecessary. Absolutely unnecessary. So that is a big fear. That is a big fear for many. And then you have the first responder side that, they have tried Skydio and and they've even, I think Skydio in some instances have even gone out to people that I've known, brought the aircrafts out, set up this whole elaborate demo and different scopes to test the product. And the product time after time was not able to compete with its Chinese counterparts. So what are you supposed to do? Use an inferior product when somebody's life is on the line. No, it makes total sense. America. Makes total sense. And I know some of you won't agree with everything I'm saying because you're so into your own bias, but you have to see it from the perspectives of the people that are doing these jobs with the equipment that they are operating, whether it be first responder, law enforcement, media providers, whatever. You have to see it from our perspectives as well. You can't just say, well, we're just seeing it from our end and that's it. Again, they're being spoon-fed information with only one side of the story, and they're only able to listen to one side. And I think that's why it's getting kicked around. I think that's why it's getting kicked back and forth between House and Senate, because the Senate's kicking it back. It's not liking the way it's written. And it's like every time it goes back to the House, it seems like it gets more and more extreme. Now, Anzu and Cogito is added to it. So I think it's going to get kicked back and forth a few more times, but ultimately, I don't think it's going to end the way that they hope it will. And hopefully it just dies on the Senate floor officially, and we can just be past this and we can move on. Personally, it shouldn't even be in the National Defense Bill at all. It has nothing to do with the military whatsoever. If anything, is it national security? Yeah, I guess you can claim it as such, but it should be its own separate bill entirely at that point. It shouldn't be sandwiched in to the Defense Authorization Act. It just shouldn't be in there. I feel like that's the sneaky way to go about it. So CycleClaw asked, even if you can use your DJI product, will you be able to get updates in the App Store in the United States? My guess is here's the deal when it comes to that. You can sideload applications from iOS. When we are testing DJI products, we sideload applications from a trusted source to it's basically an enterprise authorization is what that is. I don't know if DJI can do that for a large scale, but my guess is yes, you'll still be able to get updates. I don't see them being banned from the App Store unless the government flat out says, hey, you need to remove these applications from your App Store. I don't see that being the case. But even if that was the case, you would still be able to sideload those applications into your device. You would still be able to do that. So I don't think I don't think that that's going to be the case. The $4,000 DJI Mavic 3 Enterprise stomps the $20,000 Skydio X2. 100%. Yeah, 100%. That is not a shadow of a doubt that the X2 just does not hold a flame. The X2 doesn't hold a flame to the DJI Mavic 3, period. End of story. It just does not even compete in any method, any regard. It just does not compete. But I mean, we knew that. That's not a shock, right? We knew that was going to be the case. So that's not really a shocker to me at all that is the case, but we knew that. We absolutely knew that. But yeah, I mean, it's just so silly, this whole thing. It sucks. It sucks because, you know, it sort of also makes us fight with people that we normally wouldn't fight with. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people, and I guess, you know, it's one of those situations where, you know, we can have differences of opinion, but I don't think it should mean that we think differently of another person. Like I said, I know there's people that are doing the research side of that, and they probably think, oh, I don't like them. It has nothing to do with like it. I have a difference of opinion of that person, but it doesn't mean I dislike that person. Let's put it that way. I don't think that, you know, this really matters. At the end of the day, this is just a video. This is just it is what it is. It is what it is. So I'm hoping that, you know, this whole deal goes away. DJI will prosper. It seems like they have a lot of upcoming products. Seems that way, right? It would certainly seem that way. But, you know, we'll have to wait. We'll have to see, you know, what happens. We really will have to wait and see what happens. My guess is that the next round of meetings will really dictate whether or not this goes through. And if it does, you know, we're going to have to find another solution. It's going to really suck. But if the products do work and they're going to leave the existing products, then essentially, and I say essentially, we have a little bit of time, right? You figure most DJI products are going to last you for about 2 to 3 years. So you have 2 to 3 years for an existing company to try to get back up to DJI's level. And I would be even okay at that point if they can get up to the Air 2S or Mavic 2 Pro, somewhere in that scope of things. I mean, that would make me pretty happy, actually. But I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. If they were able to get to that point, we would have already had products today. And now I do want to reiterate the fact that this is not something that is just going to affect people that fly GPS drones. Remember, this is going to affect things like FPV flyers. Like, you got to think, you got all these transmission systems that you're using. You have HD0. You have Caddx has their own transmission signal. You have analog that is produced in China. You know, don't think just because they're banning DJI that they won't stop to look at the broad scope of things, and that hobby grade home built product won't be next on their list, because if they are deeming a drone that is very predictable to be dangerous, imagine what they think about something that is being built in your, your home, your workshop, your studio, wherever. They won't just stop with your GPS drones. Don't think it's just, oh, I fly FPV, I'm fine. Don't think of it like that, because they won't just stop there. They won't. So don't think you're just safe because, oh, I'm an FPV pilot. Those days of throwing your hands up and it doesn't pertain to me. Trust me, you're on their radar too. And they want to make it to where the national airspace is secured for whatever reason they have. They want to make sure it's secured. And I'm not trying to scare you with that. I'm just trying to give you the honest reality that they are definitely not stupid. Like, I would have not guessed that they would have been looking at Anzu. I wouldn't have guessed that, because it was so new. Who would have thought it? Who would have thought it? But I'm sure in the documents, if you dig deep, there's FPV companies listed in there as well. Guaranteed. So it's gonna be something that we do have to put on the radar and keep writing to your senators. Make sure you're clicking the link in the description, going on and letting them know constantly, almost badgering. And you're going to get a lot of these auto replies, but I guarantee you it'll flood their inboxes enough to where they're going to get the point. They're going to get tired of all those emails. So flood their inboxes, and hopefully, at the end of all this, when the votes come through, hopefully it goes the way we need. We need it to go the way we need it to go. That's for starters. I could regret doing this, but I'm gonna give her a wrench. I'm going to give her power. Stay under the radar. You're better under the radar, Amanda. Much better under the radar. Are any FPV parts not made in China? Trying to think. Actually, no. I think the vast majority, I would venture to say 90% of all FPV products and parts, components are manufactured in China. And if they're not manufactured in China, they're definitely not manufactured in the US. A very select amount of ESCs and I think even flight controllers are made here or owned by a US-based company. And if they're made overseas, they're possibly made Taiwan, China, and maybe one other country. But the manufacturing is so cheap for these PCB boards, and I mean, they're really just made in one factory in some instances. Like, you can buy like 3 different brands of the same component, and it's literally made right next to a T-motor. So you have T-motor, you have diatone, and they're all made in the same. They're all made in the same, factory side by side. So it's literally the same cast. She can have a wrench. Amanda can have a wrench. She can have a wrench. It gives her powers. Ken Torbeck says, call them. Don't just email. I agree. You need to call their offices as well. Again, they hate that. They hate actual people calling because it inundates their office staff if they have staff that is answering the phones. But it does it, and I wouldn't even stop at the national level. I would stop. I would hit your local representatives as well, because sometimes they are the ones that are going to listen the most before you get to your state reps. Speaking of representatives, I'm going to be at the round table with Ted Cruz this Friday. Good for you, man. Your pacemaker is made in China. My electric toothbrush was made in China and goes in my mouth. You never know what it could be doing in there, Jared. Be very careful with that. That's awesome, Daryl. I'm excited to see what happens and what he says. The more you can educate them on the type of thing that we do, and that not all products are bad, and there's not this big bad evil China Sauron eye that I think they all believe is there, the better off that it will be. Brad Henderson, good to see you, man. Everything is very well. Good to see you, my friend. And I will be at Commercial UAV this Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So if you're on the show floor, be sure to stop me and say hi. I will probably be hanging around somewhere. I don't think Pilot Institute has a booth this time, but if they do, I'll probably be lounging there because it's the safest spot to stow your gear. But I will be there. I would love to meet some of you if you're going to be on the show floor, for sure. Carolina, that really sounds like a situation there, but I would wash it first. My local rep has already been in contact with my state reps on our behalf. And I think that is probably one of the best ways to go about it is let your local rep reach out to the state rep. I think that speaks a little bit more to the gravitas of the situation is when the reps are reaching out to they just have a little bit more pull and they probably know the right channels to go through versus where we are just sitting there hammering emails or calling. It may or may not be doing anything. Everything is made in China or Taiwan, right? That is very true. For the most part, it absolutely is. Daryl, you're going to be at Commercial UAV. Awesome. I will definitely be there. Like I said, love to link up with everybody. I'm sure there's going to be some cool after show events. Personal email with your own words and experience is best. I agree. There's a lot of copy and paste emails, but I think if most senators and representatives are getting the same email, they're probably going to tune it out, or maybe they're going to put a filter to just send that right to spam or something to that effect. Group together and pay for a huge billboard sign. I don't know if that would work, but I think there needs to be better public awareness on this because I think otherwise what's happening is it's just going to get swept under the rug. It's just going to get swept under the rug and nothing will end up happening. So, but yeah. All righty. So that's going to do it for this. Like I said, I think there's some releases coming up. My goodness, the leaks have been nonstop from DJI. That is pretty wild. I was hoping that this would be more of a surprise release, but it seems like almost everything is really already out there. So that's sort of a bummer. Ken Torback, also, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. That didn't go unnoticed. Very much appreciated, as always. I'm going to stay away from the weed. You know what? On my honor, I will not buy any gummies while I'm in Vegas. I don't know. Maybe just one pack. One pack plus 2 more packs. How about this? I will not eat any gummies before I go to important meetings with brands. I will not eat any gummies before I go to meetings with brands. We learned our lesson. I will use the buddy system. If I go somewhere, I will use the buddy system. How about that? How about that? Lesson learned, right? No promises. Don Bow. Clifffield called me Don Bow. All right. Well, maybe 2 to 4 packs seems like a reasonable thing. 2 to 4 packs seems very reasonable. Interview Paul. That is an outstanding idea. Maybe he would be up for a conversation. I bet you he would. I guarantee you he would be up for that. He would absolutely be up for that interview. We'll see. Anything's possible, right? All right. Well, I got to get back to work, and you've got to get to your stuff. So we'll see you next time. As always, stay original. I clicked the button. Nothing happened. Let me try again. All right. Let me try this again. Maybe the mic wasn't on. All right. You got to do you, and I got to do me. So as always, stay original.
Maybe I'll just get out my head and focus on what I know's coming. Yeah. 'Cause I can't fall asleep at night without seeing my dreams. Delusionary reality, I'm somewhere in between. These voices in my head get loud and they keep telling me that I'm a fool for trusting in these wings. But maybe, baby, this what flying feels like. Maybe, baby, this what flying feels like. Maybe, baby, this what flying feels like. Maybe, baby, this good night. Maybe I should call and say, told you I'd be right. Wondering how long it was before you realized the biggest mistake of your life, and now you're paying the price. Oh, is it confidence or confusion? Either way, I feel like I ain't never losing. Your opinion of mine, you know just what I'm choosing. I gotta do this, cause I can't fall asleep at night without seeing my dreams. Delusion and reality, I'm somewhere in between. These voices in my head get loud and they keep telling me.
I gotta say, I think it went very, very well tonight. And I know when things go incredibly well, but I gotta tell you, this office is so freaking hot. So hot. I mean, it's like South Florida hot in here. But am I doing too much accordion? Is this too much accordion? But anyways, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this right now. But I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. This bill, it's not going to go anywhere. Stefanik, she's a bum. She's an absolute bum. She was trying to get on my ticket, but I saw right through her. And I'm going to be completely honest. I really like drones. Even if they're made in China, you know, it's just an act. I just say things that aren't really factual, that I don't really believe, because at the end of the day, I'm okay with China. I have a Golden Walk right around the corner from my house down south. I frequent it every day. So, oh, what's that? Oh, okay.